Eagles Entertainment.
With the 15th pick in the NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select.
You're listening to the Journey to the Draft podcast.
Welcome to the Journey to the Draft podcast presented by Life Brand. I'm your host, Fran Duffy, and the action has begun here in Indianapolis as the National Scouting Combine is officially underway. And we've got thoughts. We've got some takes. So we're going to start things off with Pick 6, where Dane Brugler is going to jump on the show to give his 6 standouts from athletic testing. Just looking at the athletic testing portion of the workout, who stood out to Dane? We'll get to that right at the top of the show. After that, we've got Draft Buzz, where Chris McPherson and I are going to share our thoughts from the field work, the position-specific drills, who stood out over the course of the evening. We'll get into that in Draft Buzz. And then really happy to welcome in for today's episode for Mr. Relevant, really a Miss Relevant, as Colleen Wolfe from NFL Network jumps on, does an outstanding job covering the entire league over with NFL Media. She is here in Indianapolis doing some of her outstanding work, interviewing these players on the sideline. So I'll talk to her about her process, getting to know these players a little bit better. Also get some thoughts on the Eagles as well from Colleen at the end of the show. As always, make sure you head on over to our Apple Podcast page, leave us a rating, leave us a review. If you've got a question, mock draft, whatever it is, you can leave it over there. We will answer those questions in an upcoming episode. That said, let's start things off here with Dane Brugler in Pick 6.
Now it's time for Pick 6.
All right, we're excited to start things off here with Pick 6 as I welcome in our friend Dane Brugler. Dane, let's get into the top athletic testing performances here from Thursday night at Lucas Oil Stadium. We'll start with your number one. Who stood out most to you over the course of the athletic testing portion of the workout?
I think we have to start with just the fact that Baylor brought a track team to Indianapolis, and we're going to see that's going to be a common theme throughout the next 4 days. With Tristan Ebner tomorrow at running back and Terrell Bernard the next day. And then when we get to the DBs, especially with Caleb Barnes and JT Woods. But it started tonight with Tyquan Thornton, the wide receiver, who, just by looking at him, he's a tall, skinny drink of water. And, he's not physically imposing, 6'2", just over 6'2", 181 pounds. But he's really light with those long legs, and that helped him run a 4.28, which was not a record, but still a 4.28 is pretty impressive. The only receiver to run a sub 4.3 tonight. This is a player who had a track scholarship to LSU, so a guy that's been known for his speed for a long time. Had a really good senior year at Baylor, really productive. Goes to the Shrine game and had a good week there. I've been told by scouts the medicals are going to be huge for him. So that's another part of his combine that's really important. But based off of what we saw in the field tonight, just the athletic testing part, I thought he put any doubts to rest about his speed or athleticism.
Yeah, there was a 2-hour stretch there where we thought he had set the record, but once the official times came out late on Thursday evening, that was put to rest, like you said. Let's get to your number 2 guy on your list.
Let's go with Calvin Austin, who, kind of size-wise, not too impressive, but we've been talking about Calvin Austin back since September, feels like, as a guy that's, really athletic, who's just a productive football player. And if you're going to be that small, you better be a big-time athlete. And I think Calvin Austin proved that. Not that we had any doubts, but coming in with a 4.32 40-yard dash, 11.3 in the broad, and then a 39-inch vertical. So Calvin Austin, if you're going to be a smaller guy and make it at the next level, you better have some juice. And I think Calvin Austin just proved what we thought based on the tape.
Pure explosiveness there from Calvin Austin, jumping out of the gym and obviously torching the 40-yard dash as the first guy off the line there for the receiver group, and he was outstanding there for group number 2. Let's get to number 3 on your list.
Alex Pierce, who, we've freaks guy, who had, thought about playing volleyball collegiately, had some scholarships to go that direction. So we knew he was an all-around athlete, a track guy in high school as well, 6'3", 211. And he rips off a 4.33 in the 40-yard dash, a tremendous time. The jumps were outstanding as well. One of the few receivers that got over 40 inches in the vert, 40 and a half, 10.9 in the broad. So Alex Pierce, another guy who had some expectations based off of his background and what we thought he could be athletically. And I thought he not only matched those, but maybe exceeded them a little bit as well.
Yeah, a couple of the big-bodied receivers really stood out. And I know you want to talk about another one as well, but Alex Pierce, a big-bodied kid from Cincinnati, played on the perimeter and showed that ability to be a three-level threat, not just on film, but here on the track in Indianapolis. Who's number 4 for you?
Yeah, you mentioned Christian Watson from North Dakota State, another guy that's tall, those long strides. He averaged over 20 yards a catch in college over his career. So a guy that just was blowing by corners at the FCS level and being that deep threat on a consistent basis. 6'4", 208, came in, ran a 4.36 in the 40-yard dash. He was moving. And then you see that lower body explosion that we talk about with him, the way that it's not just straight speed with him. It's the way that he eats up grass with those strong strides. And you see that with the jumps with 38.5-inch in the vert, 11.4 in the broad. So that lower body explosion, we see that not only down the field on jump balls and ability to make plays over defensive backs, but his ability to separate vertically. It's more than just speed. It's that subtle pacing, the stack, and then blow by the corner with that lower body athleticism. So Christian Watson really helped himself with what he did at the Senior Bowl and then what he did this week at the Combine.
Yep, no doubt. I was just going to say, continuing that momentum that he started in Mobile, obviously a really accomplished player at the college level for North Dakota State, big-bodied kid with that juice to be able to push down the field. Really, really intriguing option on the outside for teams. 4 players up, 4 receivers up, 4 receivers down. Who do you have here for number 5?
So going with Danny Gray, who is not a player that gets a ton of mention, but he was a JUCO kid, Blinn Community College back in Texas, goes to SMU, and had missed a few games when he was hurt with injuries. But when he was on the field, he was a playmaker consistently. And based on film, I thought, okay, this is a guy that he might be this year's Darnell Mooney. A guy who has some drops. He's not a perfect player. Not that the size doesn't wow you. When he walks into a room. But when you have that type of speed, that's something that can really, really separate you. And he ran a 4.33 tonight. And I think Darnell Mooney was like a 4.37 at the Combine, I believe, 2 years ago. So I think if there's going to be a Darnell Mooney in this class, I think it could be Danny Gray, a guy that does not go first 2 days, but somewhere on day 3, a team looks at him as being a deep threat and the potential to be more. I think Danny Gray can be that guy.
One of 3 SMU skill players that went tonight. Grant Calcutta, the tight end. He also tested and went through drills this evening. And then Reggie Roberson, the other wide receiver from the Mustangs, also took part in drills on Thursday night. So we've got 5 receivers. Do you have a tight end here to round out your top 6?
Well, we can't leave him out, right? We gotta throw a tight end in there, and I think a guy that definitely deserves it is Jelani Woods from Virginia. And this is a tight end who has been building momentum really just the last calendar year. He entered the transfer portal who's out of Oklahoma State originally, goes to Virginia, led all ACC tight ends with 8 touchdowns this past year, goes to the Shrine Bowl, had a great week out in Vegas. Now at the Combine, measured 6'7", 253 pounds, ran a 4.61 40-yard dash. That's better than a handful of receivers with what they ran. That was second best among all tight ends. And then earlier today, he also had 24 reps on the bench, which is even more impressive when you think about he has 34.5-inch arms. So there will be offensive linemen at the Combine this year who have shorter arms and won't get 24 reps in the bench press. So just a great all-around day for Jelani Woods. I think it was really the culmination of that sustained momentum that he's had over the last year.
C-Mac and I are getting ready to get into the rest of the drill work, but I am interested to kind of get your thoughts watching through the drills throughout the course of the evening. Is there one quarterback over the course of the entire night that really kind of popped to you watching all the drills unfold?
I think you have to say Malik Willis. Again, we know he has a big time arm and a power arm that he could put it anywhere he wants in the football field. But just letting him show off tonight and do that. The deep balls were fun. It's a lot of fun to watch him throw the ball around the field. And when you're throwing to receivers you've never thrown to, when everything you're being scrutinized under a microscope with every single throw you make, every single movement. it's easy to let the pressure get to you. But I thought Malik Willis handled himself well, and I think he didn't do anything to hurt his chances of being the first quarterback drafted. I think Kenny Pickett he did okay as well. I don't think he hurt himself by any means. A couple of these other guys, even like EJ Perry from Brown, or some of these other quarterbacks did a nice job as well. So I thought the quarterbacks as a whole had a pretty nice night.
Yeah, Malik Willis also went viral earlier on Thursday for something he did on the streets of Indianapolis. So make sure you go check that out. I'm sure that is readily available on all your social media platforms. Dane, we will be checking with you tomorrow after the offensive linemen and running backs take the field. Thanks for joining us once again here on the Journey to the Draft podcast presented by Life Brand.
Now it's time for Draft Buzz.
All right, so good stuff there from Dane as I now welcome in Chris McPherson, C-Mac. We just finished night one of drills here in Indianapolis.
Phenomenal times. Before we get into it, I'm proud that there are 2 Drexel Dragons on the podcast here.
That's right. Well, I mean, normally there are. I was going to say there typically are.
Typically there are, but it's glad that we got another one into the mix here with Colleen.
Yep,
but
no Ben Fennell this evening, but Drexel being well represented here on the pod. Let's get into some of the things we saw here on the field.
Certainly.
We'll start with group number 1, which was the tight ends. Now, real quickly, 3 guys did not participate in any aspect of the workout. James Mitchell from Virginia Tech, athletic player. I spoke to him earlier this week, and he is still suffering or still recovering from that torn ACL and meniscus tear from the fall. So no James Mitchell. Cade Otton still recovering from that ankle injury that he suffered late in the season, causing him to miss the Senior Bowl. So no Cade Otton from Washington. And Jeremy Ruckert, the Ohio State tight end, he got banged up down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He did not participate in any drills. So C-Mac, we got to watch these tight ends go through drills, and I thought, maybe one good way we can kind of structure the conversation.
Okay.
Check out the cheat sheet. Who were the guys that we predicted would do well in these drills, and maybe we kind of use that to kind of guide our way through the conversation here. The workout warriors that I had listed: Greg Dulcich from UCLA, Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina, Jalen Weidermeyer from Texas A&M. Dulcich tested well overall, but I think as Dane mentioned, I thought Jelani Woods was the guy who really kind of stole the show from a movement standpoint out there on the field.
My favorite player out there from the tight end position, has NFL body, flash well running routes, making catches, plucked the fade ball to round out the drill with ease. He ran a corner route that I said to myself, it just looked absolutely beautiful when he did. So I was truly impressed with Jelani Woods. I probably would say he was my number one in terms of the on-field work from today's action.
I love it. Well, let's get into some of these other guys. And my players that I picked for who killed the drills. Trey McBride, the talented tight end from Colorado State. Jeremy Ruckert and Cade Otton, we talked about a little bit ago. They obviously did not participate, so we'll remove those guys from the conversation. Also, Wisconsin's Jake Ferguson. C-Mac, I think at the end of the day, I thought Trey McBride might have had the best overall positional workout. Didn't put a ball on the ground. Really sharp with his route running. I thought overall, just a really, really impressive night here from Trey McBride.
Yeah, you and Dane touched on him. Just very good getting in and out of his breaks, a solid route runner, an easy mover. Certainly a lot to like. You can understand why he shined when he's at the Senior Bowl last month in Mobile, Alabama, continuing that strong progress here with his performance here at the Combine. But yeah, definitely from an on-field workout standpoint, just a solid job overall.
Is there another guy that kind of caught your eye from a drill standpoint?
So you have him in your cheat sheet. You don't have him in the drills part. He actually is in your best stories. Connor Hayward.
Yes.
Michigan State. Former fullback. You know the last name, obviously, longtime brother of longtime Steelers defensive end. Cam Hayward, the son of...
in the house tonight?
Yep, was watching from the sidelines. Proud brother, son of NFL legend Craig Ironhead Hayward. But I just thought he was one of the better route runners. Don't even know the extent of the numbers and the timing and testing part, but just from the on-field standpoint, overall a smooth mover throughout the entire course of the workout.
I don't think he put one ball on the ground. And he doesn't, obviously, look, he was a kind of a multi-use player. He looks like a traditional fullback. He's definitely undersized for, a tight end H-back. But I think when you look at the way that he's been used in the pass game, just kind of an interesting player. I thought he had a really good positional workout. I would agree. Another guy I would throw in there, Charlie Kohler from Iowa State. I thought just checked a lot of the boxes, just showed off that consistency that we've come to expect from him over the course of his career with the Cyclones. That was another name I wrote down as a guy that just really kind of stood out over the course of the night.
Okay, so we can transition to the first group of wide receivers.
Yeah, so group 2 and group 3, they both consisted of quarterbacks and wide receivers for the did not participate portion of this. For group 2, no Matt Corral, which we talked about earlier this week. He would not participate due to that ankle injury suffered late in the season. Then you get to the wide receiver position. Romeo Doubs, the talented wide receiver from Nevada, he did not participate. Indiana star wide receiver Ty Freifogel, the hometown guy, he could not participate here. Danny Gray, Dane talked about him earlier. He ran the 40, did some of the athletic testing, did not do a positional workout. Johnny Johnson from Oregon, Drake London from USC, John Mechie from Alabama. Those guys did not participate there from group number 2. Real quickly, group 3, while we're just talking about the did not participate, George Pickens from Georgia, he did some athletic testing, did not do the positional work. Justin Ross from Clemson, he did not participate at all. Tyquan Thornton, after that scorching 40, did not do anything from a positional standpoint. Devin Williams from Oregon and Jamison Williams from Alabama. So that rounds out all the players that did not participate from the quarterbacks and wide receivers.
What would be interesting with Tyquan Thornton, if he knew it was a 4.28 and not a 4.21, would he have participated?
It's a good question. Or would he have taken that extra run at the 40?
That's an even better point. Yeah. Yes, even better point.
Yeah,
because you look at Christian Watson. Christian Watson ran a blazing fast first 40 time, and we both looked at each other. We're like, he's not going to stand on that. He thinks he can actually better that one.
He had 4.33 unofficial in the first run, and we were looking at each other like, he's going to do it again. He thinks he can beat it. It was pretty wild. Obviously, he ran in the high 4.3s, I think, with the second one. But no, a really impressive performance from Christian Watson, and I think that Dane hit on him earlier. I think when you look at Watson, one of the better overall workouts, but there was one player, C-Mac, who really kind of stole the show for me when you look at Group 2.
Yep.
Sky Moore, Western Michigan.
Good call.
I think that when you look at Sky Moore, number one, he tested well across the board when you look at the athletic numbers, but then when you look at the position work, made a number of really impressive grabs, not just in the quick part of the field, the intermediate part of the field, but also downfield as well. So showing the ability to make plays at all three levels. I thought he tracked the ball well, he adjusted, and was able to finish the catch point. Sky Moore, really, really impressive.
Yeah, good body control as well. So overall, definitely agree with that one. This is the interesting thing, and we talked about this before we recorded the podcast. Group 2 felt like the workouts were more consistent across the board. I thought there were more splashes and maybe some, not as great performances from the third group. So more highs and lows, but you had more steady, even performances. All solid, I thought, across the board. Next, I want to bring up, and you and Dane talked about him already, Calvin Austin.
Sure.
You talked about the broad jump, the explosive numbers there, but he was smooth and confident in the gauntlet, explosive with his sharp cutting ability. The post corner route I thought was a thing of beauty. It's not just he has the explosive traits, you saw that carry over with his technique on the field. So I had to give a little bit of love there to Calvin Austin.
I love that. He really, really stood out. And again, building off that momentum we saw from him down in Mobile, obviously just finished a really accomplished career with the Memphis Tigers. He was one of my workout warriors coming into this. C-Mac on the cheat sheet. A couple other players I listed. Chris Olave from Ohio State. Really good workout overall. Very easily could have been in the very first segment with Dane for pick 6. I think Olave tested well across the board. Jahan Dotson from Penn State, just on the outside looking in as well. Felt good about that prediction. Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, another guy who tested really well. So feel good about my predictions on the workout warriors. For the Will Kill the Drills, I went with Traylon Burks, who I thought had just a really rock solid day. He's a big kid. I mean, he's a really, really good-looking wide receiver at 6'2.5", 225 pounds. Moves pretty well. And then you look at Garrett Wilson, was another guy I was really high on coming in. He made a couple of really impressive grabs. George Pickens didn't participate. Drake London didn't participate. So Garrett Wilson, Traylon Burks, a couple guys that I mentioned there coming in on the preview on the cheat sheet. both guys I thought showed up well here on Thursday.
Certainly, it's interesting because in some of these other bigger receivers, they move really well. It's one thing to be a big receiver, be able to win those 50-50 balls, those contested catches, but if you're not going to be able to get in and out of your breaks, you're going to be limited to what you can do for an offense. And, I'm going to go to a Christian Watson, who is a legit 6'4", was measured at the Senior Bowl and measured here at the Combine. And he is so explosive out of his stance, but he's not stiff in his routes. He's big, he's fast. Looking at these big receivers, they just offer more than just the size. They give you a little bit of wiggle there so that they could be dangerous at all levels of the field.
Two more guys for me. Eric Ezukonma from Texas Tech. I actually haven't done him yet, and he's a big kid, long strider. I thought he accelerated well. I thought he tracked well over the shoulder, made some nice catches downfield, some nice catches along the sideline. I was impressed with him. And then Jalen Naylor, a player that Ben has mentioned numerous times from Michigan State, speedy receiver. I thought he tested well, but in the position workout, he rarely let the ball hit the ground. I thought he just had a really rock-solid day overall. Is there anybody else just kind of empty in the notebook there on your end?
Just first, I thought Chris Olave was sensational.
Yeah, ridiculous.
We talk about the spicy shrimp cocktail. Like, there was the spiciest of the bunch out there on the field. Like, for me, just far and away, the best one from a positional workout standpoint was automatic. It was a robot in the gauntlet. His out route, I called it chef's kiss. His curl route, tight body control, just fast and smooth throughout. Loved watching him out there on the field. Some other ones, you talked about Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, who I thought also did well in the positional workout. Under the radar one, how about Mike Woods?
No doubt. Was just going to bring him up.
Mike Woods, Oklahoma, caught a heck of a pass from Malik Willis on the last series of go routes. Nice highlight reel type grab on the fade route, showing good body control. Conquered the gauntlet. I thought was probably a little more of an underrated performance here from Mike Woods out of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I thought that he would definitely had one of the more underrated performances.
Nothing gets by you, Fred. Come on.
Yeah,
give me something.
Yeah,
here.
he was a guy that really stood out to me. If you did not say him, I was going to bring him up next. There were Khalil Shakir, I thought had some good flashes. Brenton Sanders from Ole Miss, I thought had some flashes. Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, talked about him a little bit. Just a dynamic player. I thought he had some really good grabs as well. There were a handful of those, really at all three levels of the field. Once again, when you look at Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, so a bunch of players really standing out here. C-Mac. It was fun to be able to kind of take in the first night of drills. 1 of 4. So we've got more action coming our way. Offensive linemen and running backs taking the field at Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday evening. We're going to break it all down tomorrow here on the Journey to the Draft podcast presented by Life Brand. Before we wrap up the show, we're going to wrap things up with Mr. Relevant.
It's time for Mr. Relevant.
Well, excited to welcome in for the first time here on the Journey to the Draft podcast someone very familiar with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's Colleen Wolf from NFL Network. Colleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am all too familiar with the Eagles.
Very much so. And for our listeners, you just had Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni on the Split Ends podcast.
Yes.
How did that go?
Hilariously well. We had so much fun with Nick. He told us all sorts of stuff. Like, I had a lot of questions about the visor and where the highlighters went at the end of the season. Why change the game plan there? So we talked about that, but he was also telling me that the coaching staff has a competition going on right now of who can lose the most body fat, which I was not keyed in on. And I found out what the bod pod was, which I didn't know that this was like a machine that you get into and then it measures all of like your body fat, your like lung capacity, all of it. But you have to get in there naked.
I have not gone into the bod pod. I've heard about the bod pod.
Nick didn't say that you had to go in naked, but someone else told me that's now I don't know. Maybe they're just telling me that. Who knows?
I know he's skipping breakfast at this point. So
oh, really?
So I think that's part of his regiment to try and see if he can win this competition.
He's trying to drop 15.
Yeah.
He said that's the goal for the season coming up. But he was really funny. We talked about the Sixers and James Harden.
He loves basketball.
He loves Jay Wright and Villanova. So he said that Jay has been such a great mentor for him just in terms of the success that he's had as a head coach, but then also navigating Philadelphia. And we know that you need some type of Philadelphia Sherpa when you come into town to guide things. And so he was really great on the show. It was a fun one. We talked about thick thighs and hand size.
Did you guys talk about shooting hoops in the combine interview room?
So that he said that they, we didn't talk about this specifically because I did hear that come out after the fact. But he did say that they put a pickleball thing. I don't really know a lot about pickleball. Yeah.
I'm not a pickleball person, but there are people in our department that are very much into pickleball. So.
What is?
So it's like a
pickleball?
It's like a high-speed, high-impact table tennis that's played on like standing up. So it's not like at a table, but it's like
So it's different than ping pong?
Yes.
It's like
much
tennis
more
and
intense.
ping pong.
Yes,
meet?
it's like a mix of tennis and ping pong.
Okay, I gotcha.
High intensity.
Wow. Everything's a competition.
No question.
Love
so
it.
what I wanted to ask you, that's a great icebreaker with what they're doing in the combine interview rooms.
Yeah.
What I've loved about combine coverage with NFL Network over the last few years has been your interviews on the sideline with these guys. So I'm interested to kind of get a sense of some of the things you guys are doing this year. And what do you have in store for some of these prospects as they get ready to take the field?
We have a ton of stuff lined up. I love this time of year because we get to talk to the top prospects, and it's after they're done their drills and after they've gone through just a gauntlet of testing and interviews, and they're being shuttled all over the place and not sleeping. So by the time we get them, they're really broken down. Their guard is down, and they're relieved that they have gotten through to the other side, and they're about to leave and get on a plane and go home. And the combine is just such a big moment for these players. And so when we get to talk to them, we really get to see their personality. A lot of these guys shine through. And we've done so many fun ones in the past. We had a hobby horse for Devin White because we knew that he had this amazing horse that he loved named Daisy May. I can't believe I still remember that. I know he has a new horse now.
There was the Ben Barch one.
The Ben Barch.
That's the one, right?
That was probably my favorite, and that was something that was not even planned. And we saw everything going on with like his smoothie, and we were like, I wonder if we have the ingredients to do this. And I was like, well, I mean, how are you going to find a blender?
Right.
And we somehow procured like all the ingredients and the blender, and we're able to do that with him in like 20 minutes or so. Like the whole team was like, team assemble. And it was, if I can remember, let me see if I can get all the ingredients right. It was scrambled eggs, a banana, peanut butter. I think it was like some type of oat product, oatmeal or grits. Cottage cheese was in there. And then he poured, it was very important that the color was correct, red Gatorade.
So I've got the list here.
Okay.
You went 7 scrambled eggs, a tub of cottage cheese, peanut butter, a banana, 1 cup of grits, and then the Gatorade. You nailed it. 2 years after the fact, nailed it.
It was very memorable, let me tell you.
I don't even want to ask you
no, you know
how
what?
that went.
Like, I swear it was not that bad.
Yep.
But I will say that we were missing one ingredient that we left the cottage cheese out because we couldn't find it anywhere. Yep. And I've done the Ben Barch smoothie twice. I did it on another radio show where they actually had the cottage cheese.
So you got the authentic
version. It was much chunkier with the cottage cheese.
That consistency throws me off. That's
it was not
Did he notice that the consistency was off?
No, he didn't say anything, and I didn't know any better. So I was like, this is actually great because I put so much peanut butter in it, so it just tasted like peanut butter. But I'm not trying. It's not bulking season for me right now, so I only had 1 sip.
So first of all, I guess when you get the chance to meet these guys in this environment, do you catch up with them later on down the road? You go to the Super Bowl, you go to these other events, and have they reflected on that years after the fact?
It's funny because I'll do Thursday Night Football.
And
they'll come up on stage, and it's like, I haven't like talked to you since the combine before, like you didn't even know where you were going yet. And so I'll be like Juju Smith-Schuster and DK Metcalf and Chase Young, and I look back through my pictures, and some of the prospects, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot I even talked to him. Because it's half and half with the guys that hit. Some of them become superstars, and then Others, not so much.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, too, it's a wild card with these interviews because sometimes their personalities are made for this. And then other times they're just quieter guys that are a little more introverted.
Yeah.
And this is not going to be their thing.
Right.
But when you get a guy who is outgoing and a star,
Yep.
that's the jackpot. So we've been able to hit on a lot of them.
When you hit one of these and you're like, you have that jackpot scenario, are you keeping your fingers crossed that they end up in Philadelphia and end up in that market?
Oh, all the time. In fact, one of my coworkers that works in the features department at NFL, she's like, what is going on? We are interviewing all of these prospects and like 80% of them are Eagles fans. And I was like, oh, really? Well, this is a smart bunch.
Yep. Jalen Hurts, thoughts on how he did this past season, year 2, just moving forward into 2022?
Yeah, I don't think anyone really expected this team to go to the playoffs. This was sort of a transition year with a new coaching staff and starting Jalen Hurts in that position for the first time. He had a couple of those games to start before Carson Wentz was shipped to Indy, but last year was the first real season. And then with his teammate there, former teammate Devontae Smith, everything really clicked, I think, a lot faster than I at least was ready for, than I expected. And so I think having the continuity with the coaching staff, being able to bring back everyone. I mean, even having Jonathan Gannon there, the defense helps the quarterback as well.
Yep.
So that's going to be huge for him. And having that continuity, obviously, with the play caller. He hasn't had back-to-back years with the same play caller since he was in high school, and it was his dad. Reuben Frank wrote that article, and I was like, I texted Rube, and I was like, what, are you kidding me? This is true? And I brought that up to Sirianni yesterday in the interview, and he was like, I know, I read that, and I couldn't believe it either. So just having that ability to have the consistency and be able to develop and take one thing and build on it, that's going to be massive for him.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Colleen, I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Obviously, you have a busy week ahead of you. Really can't wait to catch up with all these interviews. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Journey of the Draft podcast.
Thank you so much, Fran.
Always fun to be able to catch up with Colleen Wolfe. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Make sure you go check out her Split Ends podcast, like we talked about. Nick Sirianni, an upcoming guest. If he hasn't dropped already, make sure you go check that out. Again, we'll be back tomorrow breaking down offensive linemen and running backs. Stay tuned. Stay subscribed right here on the Journey of the Draft podcast presented by Life Brand.